Hey, this is Matt. Once again, we're about to another review. There's another paid request, this time from Joseph. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested in requesting pretty much any type of videos, topics, reactions, rankings, lists, commentaries, re-reviews, whatever, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal or join my Patreon. Both links are down below in the info box. And this is for the 1993 TV movie, Body Bags, by John Carpenter and Tobe Hooper. Now, this was a TV movie made for Showtime, and for a little bit, it might have been a TV show, but Showtime wanted it to be cheaper and move it to Canada, and John Carpenter and such said, well, we're not going to be able to get the cameos that we got for this, which is part of the fun of this, and it being a lower budget, nah, that's okay, so it didn't become a TV show. So it was just this made-for-Showtime movie that, pretty decent anthology. Not my favorite. I would put Creepshow, Trick or Treat, Cat's Eye above it. But it's pretty decent. I mean, the cast in particular makes this worth a watch. It's 3 stories. The host in between the stories is John Carpenter himself as the morgue attendant. This character here, that was John Carpenter. Kind of being if Beetlejuice met the Crypt Keeper. And he was having fun. I mean, I'm a big John Carpenter fan. He's my favorite director. I know some people may say his performance is stiff, no pun intended, but again, being a fan of the guy and knowing that he's not an actor, it was fun to see him have fun. And it seemed like he was having a ball. I didn't mind the makeup on him either. This does have some pretty good makeup effects, which I think Rick Baker had a hand in the effects. I could be wrong. Yeah, I could be wrong on that. But either way, even if it's not, the makeup effect's fairly solid. And of the 3 stories, I would say I like the first one the best. As someone put it, it's kind of the closest John Carpenter did to a slasher film in the vein of Halloween. And it's called The Gas Station. And this one was simple, fairly simple, but I liked it. I enjoyed it. Alex Thatcher from Passenger 57 with Wesley Snipes, she plays a woman who gets this job at a gas station. It's her first night. Funny enough, on the news they mentioned Haddonfield, which is the town in Halloween. And this guy, Robert Carradine, says, oh, hey, welcome to it. This is what you need to do. You have a good night. And pretty much throughout the night, she keeps meeting these people, some weirder than others. Like you have Wes Craven, may he rest in peace, as this drunk guy, who's actually, he was rather good. Wes Craven, I thought, played a good drunk. How's it going? Yeah, nice creepy character. You have Peter Jason and his wife. You have George Buttflower, who was in The Fog. He was one of the people killed on the ship in the first act of the film by the ghost. He was in Escape from New York. He was the guy in Escape from New York that Steve Pliskin found and said, I knew if I found this, I'd be president. He was a bum in Back to the Future. He played a lot of small roles. He was in They Live. He plays a bum in this. Like I said, you got Robert Carradine, who from Revenge of the Nerds, playing a very different role. David Naughton, the star of An American Werewolf in London, he's in this. Sam Raimi makes a cameo. That's what I mean. You have a lot of very familiar faces if you know movies or the genre. And it was Carpenter, again, his take on doing a stalker movie that he didn't really do a lot since Halloween. So it was nice to kind of see him tip his toe back into that realm. And it was my favorite of the 3. Like I said, because I like the cameos, I like the cast. I like the ending. It was pretty straightforward. You could probably guess who the killer is fairly easily, but it was still fun, nevertheless. Granted, if you know who the killer is, maybe it's not the most exciting segment, because you're kind of just waiting for the ball to drop, so to speak. Because you're going, okay, I know it's not him, but it's just fun to see the cast of characters. And there's some decent camera work. The score is alright. It's not one of my favorite scores by John Carpenter. But, I mean, it's not bad, but it's not one of my favorites either. Overall, it's a fun one. Again, the way it ends, the way the villain gets his comeuppance, the usage of people like David Naughton, and Alex Thatcher, I think she did a pretty decent job. Overall, I liked it. The second one, Hair, definitely more of a quirky. I'm not sure about the music, because it tries to do like a Twin Peaks kind of soundtrack to it, but it's definitely trying to be more of a goofy comedic segment. And this is one with Stacy Keach, who I love as an actor. He was in this film called Road Games, which is a personal favorite of mine. Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke, talented actor. He's a guy who's an actor. He's very self-conscious about his hair. He's going bald. He's trying to always find ways to fix it. And his girlfriend's like, don't worry about it. But he's just so self-conscious. Vanity is a big problem for him. So one day he sees his commercial and he meets up with David Warner. David Warner he was Professor Perry in Ninja Turtles 2 Secret of the Ooze. He had bit parts in the Mouth of Madness and Waxwork. He was the villain in Waxwork. He was in a bit part in Scream 2. He's been around a lot. Good actor. And you tell these actors are having fun. And the plot was definitely quirky, because he gets his... Stacy Keach gets a hair transplant, and you find out there's something about this hair. In a weird way, it reminded me a little bit of the Stephen King segment in Creepshow. I think just because you have a character that's not the brightest bulb, and then you have this thing that just keeps growing and growing and growing and will not stop, and then doesn't really lead to the most positive climax for this character. Spoiler alert. Yeah, I'll go into spoilers. Okay, it's a horror anthology that John Carpenter directed first two. Tobe Hooper directed the third one, where Mark Hamill is a baseball player that gets in a car accident and his eyeball gets messed up and he gets a transplant of another eyeball. You can guess where that eyeball came from. If this interests you at all, like, wow, you got Mark Hamill from Star Wars, you got Robert Carradine from Revenge of the Nerds, and you got John Carpenter and Tobe Hooper directing, you got Stacy Keach. And if you like horror anthologies, either you don't see it or you're not going to see it. So it's up to you. Listen, I liked the first segment. I liked how Robert Carradine got killed, getting squished by the car. And the second one, you find out that the hair is these little aliens that feast on your brain. And I like the little animation on the hair. This was before CGI. Well, there was CGI with Terminator 2, but it wasn't a common thing. So it was still a little bit about 3D animation. I like the way it looked. That's a story that I kind of wish would be longer to see where this was leading to. I mean, you do, but you find out David Warner and them, actually Deborah Harry from the band Blondie, and then she was in Videodrome. She's working with David Warner. They have the aliens on them as well, and they cut this stuff together and they give it to other transplants. Their slow invasion. I guess it's one of those that if the joke with the whole hair stuff doesn't satisfy you, I don't know how much fun you'll have with the segment. At least it was kind of interesting idea, unique idea. Stacy Keach I liked as an actor, so it was fun to see him play around with it. It worked well as a segment. I don't know, I was looking for a bit more, but I can't quite put into words what that would not actually be. And the third story with Mark Hamill, it's cool to see Mark Hamill play a different type of character. He's a minor league baseball player. Like I said, he gets in a car accident is an eye transplant. I'm going, wait, another transplant? Well, we just had a hair transplant. Now we have an eye transplant. And he's seen visions, like a hand coming from a sink and a woman rising from the backyard, and it's because his eyes from a killer that was in the gas chamber. And so what he sees what the killer saw, and the killer had issues with his mom and such. That was my least favorite. Mark Hamill isn't bad. It's got some good makeup effects, like the others. It's just, it came across as a lesser version of Body Parts, which I have on Blu-ray over here, but it's all the way at the bottom. It just made me don't want to go rewatch Body Parts, because that's really what this is. Like, this film, I mean, this segment with Mark Hamill is just... Nah, I don't want to mess with it. Body Parts is a 1991 with Jeff Fahey, 1991 film, where his arm gets fucked up because of a car accident. He gets a transplant. There's a transplant of a killer, and that starts fucking with him. Only that I thought had... I had to say it had better direction by Eric Red compared to Tobe Hooper. I thought it had a better performance. I don't mind Mark Hamill, but I thought Jeff Fahey did a much better job. I thought it had a much more interesting story. Because it's not just about the arm having control of itself. You also have the owner of that arm wanting to get his limbs back. And a lot more satisfying finale, a lot more satisfying story. It just, again, it just seemed like a lesser version. And granted, there are many stories before both of those that dealt with ideas. It's not the most original idea. I mean, there's been plenty of stories in the past of other anthologies, TV shows, that dealt with, you got a transplant instead of a killer. That's what I mean, like, compared to, you know, there's not a lot of slasher films at a gas station that made it a bit more interesting and fun. And again, the way John Carpenter and all the cameos. And the idea of hair is definitely unique. Here, it's an idea I've seen many, many times before. Mark Hamill wasn't bad, so I guess there's at least that to sink your teeth into. It's just, again, it's nothing that unique, it's nothing that I haven't seen before, and it just wasn't as special to me as the first two. Again, not awful. Mark Hamill makes it work. Again, some of the makeup effects, but just, yeah, I have to take it or leave it. As not stopping with the cameos, even Tom Arnold and Tobe Hooper themselves make a cameo at the end, in the last part of the John Carpenter wraparound, with him as the morgue attendant. And the features, you have a commentary, Robert Carradine and John Carpenter on the gas station, John Carpenter, Stacy Keach on hair, Sandy Keene, the producer, is also John Carpenter's wife, and Justin Beam on eye. You have a 20-minute featurette where they interview John Carpenter, Sandy Keene, Stacy Keach, Robert Carradine. You have a trailer. The commentary is fine. The 20-minute featurette was probably the most... It was the most interesting part. You also have Sheena Easton. You have Twiggy. Yeah. Roger Corman makes a cameo as a doctor in the eye segment with Mark Hamill. Twiggy plays Mark Hamill's wife in that third segment. Twiggy, I think I saw her, was it Club Paradise with Robin Williams? I forget what I had seen her in. Can't remember. Like I said, not a bad anthology film. You know, it's not in my top 10 favorite John Carpenter movies, but this was a decent flick. It was a decent movie. I think if you like anthologies, like Tales from the Crypt, Creepshow, things of that nature, it's definitely worth a look. Especially if you're a fan of these directors, if you're a fan of any of these cast members. You do a lot worse. You do a lot worse. And it seemed like, you know, John Carpenter himself was having fun with the wraparound segments. I'll take that over some of the worst If people think this is bad, go watch some of the VHS movies. Go watch some of those anthologies. That's fucking bad. This, I don't think it's bad. So, with that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.